الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah. 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 Adada qalqihi wa rida nafsihi wa zinatul arshihi wa midad kalimatihi wa muntaha ilmihi wa jami'a ma sha'a wa khalaqa wa dara wa bara. Alim al-ghayb wa shahadatu rahman ar-rahim. الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون أما بعد فيقول الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. After praising Allah, the Most High, and sending peace and blessings upon the messenger who He has sent, our Sayyid, our Master, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we begin with a verse, an ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, whose English title goes by the name of the cow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. So He's addressing the believers. He says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kafatan. Come into Islam completely, kafa, entirely. Or as Yusuf Ali puts in his translation, wholeheartedly. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. And do not follow the footsteps of the devil, because he is to you an open enemy. See, the danger for us as we approach the month of Ramadan, approximately 3 weeks as we get closer to Ramadan, the danger for the believer, the danger for the Muslim, is coming into Islam completely, wholeheartedly. The thing that separates most of us from the first generation, those who surrounded the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that they turned their backs on the Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic period, and everything that represented that pre-Islamic period. They turned their backs to it all of the way. Not a little bit, not even 80%, not even 90%. They turned their backs on it 100%. In fact, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you, meaning his companions, you are in the state whereas if you left off 10% of your deen, meaning if you only practice it 90%, you will be astray. But there's coming a time of people after you, and if they only practice 10%, they'll be okay. That's the difference between them and us. They turned their backs all of the way. In fact, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, the brother of Ali, first cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the leader of the Muslims, who after only 5 years after revelation began, found themselves in Africa seeking refuge with Najashi, the Negus of Abyssinia. And part of his talk, part of his presentation, defending himself and the Muslims, because see, the Quraysh, Mecca, had not become Muslim yet. And they do what all corrupt people do. They try to dishonor and demonize those who are upon the truth. So we got some rebels from our country. We got some people who don't want to go along to get along. And they're causing a lot of trouble in our country. And they're in your country right now as refugees. They're hiding out from us in your country. And we came here to retrieve them from your country. Look at how the Muslims reacted when they got in the audience of the king. And the king and Najashi entered. Everyone bowed. The pagan Quraysh was there to get the Muslims, and everyone from Abyssinia. Everyone bowed. And then when he gave permission, they all stood up. Everyone did that except for the Muslims. And Najashi said, you don't bow like everyone else? Ja'far said, we only bow to Allah. Look at this example. When you leave Jumu'ah, read the Sirah about this. It wasn't a whole bunch of them talking. Ja'far spoke, one person. Ja'far didn't say, we only bow to Allah. And then some other Muslims said, well, King, I don't necessarily agree with him. I think, being the situation, I think it'll be okay if we bow. Wasn't a whole bunch of back and forth. And Najashi said, what's your story? Tell us what happened. Because see, the Prophet ﷺ said about this king that he is a just king and he doesn't oppress anyone in his land. And so he wasn't just going to say, okay, from one leader to another, I'll hand them over. He said, no, I'm not going to hand anyone over. If they sought refuge under my authority, I should at least hear them out, at least hear their side of the story. And this is what just people do. They don't just make a decision based upon half the story. They get everyone's side of the story. And so when Ja'far spoke, some of the things he said, "O king, we were an ignorant people, and we were living like wild animals. Our situation was such that the powerful oppressed and devoured and used the weak." He said, "We didn't respect our women." He also said that we were living in this type of situation until Allah sent us a messenger who were from our own people. We were from these people. It was from us. And all of us knew about his character, how he was trustworthy, how he was truthful. And so we followed him. And we gave up the way we used to be. In other words, the situation I just described to you, we followed him and we gave up all of that. We turned our backs on him. And so they began to persecute us because of our religion, which is Islam. And now we sought refuge in your country, and now they sent two of their own to bring us back to this oppression and this torture because we don't want to do what everyone else was doing. You see, even early at this stage of the game in Revelation, 5 years after the revelation began, while the torture was still going on, way before the Muslims had any authority, any power, anything in Medina, we're still in Mecca. They understood that this way of life means that they had to turn their backs on their ignorant old ways. What's called in Arabic al-Jahiliyyah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa afdalu salatu wa atamu taslim ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa radiyallahu ta'ala an sadat al-tabi'in wa ulama al-amalin wa a'immatul arabat al-mujtahidin wa muqallidihim ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. We have to turn our backs on it all of the way. Subhanallah. You know, in a well-known hadith narrated by the Sahabi Nu'man ibn Bashir, and has been recorded by both Bukhari and Muslim and others, Imam Nawawi has it in his 40 hadith, his Arba'in. He mentions that the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, al-halal bayyin, that which is permissible is clear. Wal-haram bayyin, and that which is prohibited, that which is not permissible, is bayyin. Wa baynahuma, between the two, between the halal, between the haram, in the middle, there's there's unclear, doubtful matters. Mushtabihat. So everything isn't black and white. There's a gray area in the middle. The halal is clear. The haram is clear. Nobody, well, some people, well, most rational people don't argue about those things. But in the middle is a gray area, a doubtful matters. The Prophet ﷺ went on, he said, the one who safeguards himself from these doubtful matters protects his deen and his honor. We're not talking about the haram, that which nobody argues with. We're not talking about wine, alcohol, khamr. It's clear that that's not permissible. We're talking about the doubtful issues, the gray area, the one that's not explicitly spelled out in the Quran and the Sunnah. The one who stays away from those things protects his deen and his honor. Then the Prophet ﷺ gave a parable. He said, every king has a sanctuary. Every king has a sanctuary. You don't let your animals, the shepherd doesn't let his animals roam near the sanctuary of the king. Why? Because by being so close to it, by being right there near the boundary, the border that you're not supposed to be in, you're not on this property, but you're so close to it, eventually you're going to go into it. Eventually those animals will go into the king's sanctuary. And Allah's sanctuary, Allah's hurma, is his prohibitions. Allah's sanctuary is his prohibitions. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us the way you stay away from doing what Allah told you not to do is to stay away from those doubtful matters that are kind of close to what Allah told you not to do. This is the way you protect your deen and your honor. And then the Prophet ﷺ said something else. He said, Allah, inna fil jasadi mudghatan. He said that verily, in the body, in the jasad, is a mudghah, is a lump of flesh. Either salahat, salaha jasadun kulluhu. If it is sound, this mudghah, this lump of flesh, if it is sound, if it is rectified, if it is healthy, the whole body is healthy. Either fasadat, fasad jasadu kulluhu. If it is corrupt, this lump of flesh, if it is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. Ala wa hiya al. And this lump of flesh that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about, this lump of flesh that if it is good, the whole body is good. If it's corrupt, the whole body is corrupt. This lump of flesh is the heart. This lump of flesh is the heart. The Prophet ﷺ said, "With to be jawami al-kalam." I've been sent with very comprehensive words. Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ is putting us up on game. In levels and layers of this game we don't even understand yet. Those of us who have heart issues, we know the reality of this. This with the physical heart. But it's the same thing with the spiritual heart. It's the same thing with the heart, the soul. Some people ask, for example, is it permissible to drink non-alcoholic beverages? Some of these so-called non-alcoholic beverages actually have alcohol in it, a low percentage. The question is not halal haram, why I mention it today. The question is the heart of the person who would ask that question. Why do you desire to be so close to the haram? Why? Well, I just like bubbly stuff. Well, they make soda. They make salsa water. They make a whole lot of beverages that bubble. Why are you concerned with non-alcoholic beverages? Some of us, we want to be so close to it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ahzab that Allah has not made qalbayn, two hearts, in the chest of one man. In other words, your heart can't be in two places. And actually the reason for revelation of that particular verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was in a process of dispelling popular myths that was prevalent amongst the Arabs. And when somebody used to be very smart and intelligent, one of their sayings that they would say was that this man has two hearts. And so it's obvious that a person doesn't have two hearts. So Allah began the verse by saying, Allah has not created in any one person two hearts. It's a saying. Nobody believed that a person literally had two hearts. But it's just a saying, right? And so then Allah continues to go on and say, well, in other words, ya'ni or i.e., in a way that you can understand that this saying that we used to say is not literal, it's not real. You don't really believe a person has two hearts in his chest. Likewise, just because you say that your adopted son is your son, that don't make it really your son. And just because you say that your wife is like your mother's back, in other words, your wife is prohibited to you because you made some crazy jahili oath, that don't mean that that's the reality of the situation. Allah has not put two hearts in the chest of one person. Our hearts can't go both ways. We can't love Allah and love Shaitan and his handiwork at the same time. It just don't work out. You can try it, but it's not going to work. Eventually, the type of person who has a psychology where he or she is going to ask, is it permissible to drink non-alcoholic beverages? The same person eventually is going to say, and a lot of us have said it and are saying it, the false logic. Well, the prohibition is on khamr. And khamr, what they're saying, is restricted to alcohol. So the prohibition doesn't necessarily go for weed. Plus, weed is from the earth. Well, the alcohol is from the earth. You make alcohol one way by growing things like grapes and letting them ferment, etc., etc., etc. That's a weak argument. Cocaine is from the earth. Heroin is from the earth. They originate in plants. But we're not talking about halal or haram. We're talking about the mindset, the heart of the person who wants to be near Allah's sanctuary, who doesn't want to completely turn his back on it. We have to turn our backs on it. Turn our backs all of the way. And just because you were born in a Muslim family, that doesn't mean that you don't have your own type of jahiliyyah. Those of us who were born to Muslim families, we have a different type of jahiliyyah. Sometimes our jahiliyyah manifests itself in a form of ingratitude. We're not grateful for the fact that we were born in a Muslim family. Sometimes it manifests itself in not being grateful for the blessings that Allah gave you. You had the information, you had the knowledge, you had the guidance, you grew up in a household seeing your parents make salat. Some of us had to go to prison. Some of us had to get shot. Some of us had to go through a ton of different false religions, worshiping cows, rats, our own desires, worshiping everything. Like Umar ibn al-Khattab said. He said he was talking about his own jahiliyyah and the jahiliyyah of the Arabs during their time when they would be traveling. And they would, they wanted to take their idols with them. And so sometimes the idols are too big. It's not, good to travel with them. So they would take dates and they would make their idol a temporary idol out of the date, a rental idol. Out of the date. Sometimes your car ain't good enough to travel. Maybe it's not road ready. So you go to Enterprise or Hearst to rent a car. They had rental idols. So they rented their idol. They made their idol out of dates. Then they got hungry and they would eat the idol. The same idol they worshiping. Sometimes we have to go through embarrassing states like that to become Muslim. But some of us, we're born in this state. We're born in a household with Muslim parents who are sincerely trying, and we're not grateful for it. We want the other stuff. And us parents can tell you, son, daughter, trust me, you don't want that. There's no harm, there's no good in that, trust me. Just misery and depression. I know it looks fun to you. I know it looks amazing to you. I know it looks like that to you. But that's the way hellfire is. It is surrounded by beautiful things. And some of our children, they don't get it. And they go off. And alhamdulillah, a lot of them come back only to realize that what their parents were telling them from the beginning was the truth. So all of us have a level or a form of some type of manifestation of jahiliyyah. The way we're going to achieve what we could achieve is that we have to turn our backs to it. Turning our backs. Because I know how some of you think. Some of us think, we think, okay, I'm listening to him, but he said something wrong and I'm going to find it. I don't mean that you don't learn from your past. I don't mean that you completely ignore it and turn away from it and pretend it never happened. No, stop dilly-dallying, dibble-dabbling in it. A lot of us dibble-dabble in it. And we don't do what Allah says. Enter into Islam wholeheartedly. We're not all the way in it, but we're around it, close to it. Right near the king's sanctuary. The Prophet ﷺ told you that if you hang around those mushtabihat, those doubtful issues, right around, real close and real near proximity to those haram things, you're eventually going to fall into it. And the reason why you fall into it is because the heart is sick. إِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْقُلُوبُ جَسَدَ الْقُلُوبُ. If the heart is sick or corrupt, all of the body is corrupt. This is the reason why we're amazed with aspects of our jahiliyyah. This is why we're so close to it, because the heart still loves it. The heart still has an affinity towards it. May Allah make us like the Sahaba about whom the Prophet ﷺ colony. They are the best of his generation, best of his women. May Allah rectify our hearts. May Allah make us turn our backs on the jahiliyyah, all of it. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.